Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. This week we have results from two important Roy Morgan state polls in Victoria and New South Wales. Both states are holding elections in the next year, and in both states support for One Nation is surging. But the latest federal poll shows the LNP fighting back. The Roy Morgan poll into federal voting intention shows the ALP leading on 31%, the Liberal National Coalition on 24%, that's up 0.5% from last week and up 4% since Angus Taylor became leader. One Nation is on 20.5%, that's down 1% in a week and down 4.5% since Taylor became coalition leader. Support for the Greens is 12.5% and independents and other parties 12%, according to interviewing conducted from Feb 16 to 22, with a representative Australia-wide cross-section of 1,649 electors. The results signify continuing, albeit slow, recovery following the coalition leadership change to Angus Taylor. On a two-party preferred basis, the ALP is on 54.5% compared to the coalition on 45.5%. If a federal election were held now, the ALP would be easily returned to government. However, Australians are concerned about the country. A majority of electors, 57.5% of electors, say the country is going in the wrong direction. Only 29.5% say the country's going in the right direction. This means the Roy Morgan government confidence rating is at only 72, nearly 30 points below the neutral level of 100. The first Roy Morgan poll of Victorian electors in the lead up to this year's Victorian state election, set for November, shows a surging One Nation, 26.5%, now ahead of both the ALP on 25.5% and the LNP coalition on 21.5% on their primary vote. 13.5% support the Greens and 13% support minor parties and independents. So since the last Victorian election, support for One Nation has increased by over 26%. Support for the ALP is down 11% and support for the coalition is down 13%. This survey was conducted from February 13 to 16 with a representative Victoria-wide cross-section of 2,462 electors. The Roy Morgan poll of New South Wales electors, conducted from Feb 16 to 19 with a representative New South Wales-wide cross-section of 2,108 electors, shows a surging One Nation on 30%, ahead of both the ALP on 25% and LNP on 19% on a primary vote, just 1 year before the state election. 12.5% support the Greens and 13.5% support minor parties and independents. So since the last New South Wales election, support for One Nation has increased by over 28%. Support for the ALP is down 12% and support for the coalition is down 16%. When Roy Morgan asked voters in New South Wales and Victoria about why they were voting for One Nation, there were some differences. People in Victoria mentioned the CFMEU, big build and extensive union corruption, and in New South Wales there were more mentions of Bondi terrorist attack and the response. But there were really consistent messages from both states about the level of immigration and net zero, and that One Nation don't change their values to get votes. The issue of cost of living, Labor and Liberal being out of touch and not supporting the interest of the Australian people, and the incompetence of the governments, the lack of leadership from both major parties, and the fact that Pauline is a straight talker and says what she means and means what she says. And now to the key weekly indicators. There was good news this week with the ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence up 3.1 points to 80.2. Driving this week's increase was more confidence about the Australian economy over the next year. That was up a net 5 percentage points. More confidence about the next 5 years, up a net 4 percentage points. And in further good news, the ANZ Roy Morgan inflation expectations dropped 0.3% to 5.2% this week. This means Australians expect inflation of 5.2% in each of the next 2 years. Now, on a different topic, the latest Roy Morgan Australian Readership report shows 63% of Australians, that's an estimated 14.5 million Australians aged 14 and over, read magazines, either in print or online via the web or an app. That's what we call cross-platform audience. And nearly 3/4 of this total cross-platform audience, more than 10.7 million people, read print magazines. Magazines with the largest cross-platform audience are Better Homes and Gardens and Woman's Day, both reaching an audience of over 1.9 million. New Idea and the Australian Woman's Weekly both reach over 1.6 million people, and Take 5, National Geographic, TV Week and Take 5 Bumper Monthly all have audiences of well over 1 million. Just looking at the print magazines, several large categories are read by millions of Australians. More than 6.2 million Australians read food and entertainment magazines in print, in hard copy. Almost 4 million read home and garden magazines and general interest magazines, again in print. Well over 2.3 million read mass women's magazines in print, and business, financial and airline magazines are read by more than 1.2 million, as are health and family magazines. And looking forward to next week, I'll be back to bring you the latest data for consumer confidence, inflation expectations, the latest on mortgage stress, and we look at New Zealand voting intentions. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you next week.